So there's 5 senses.
There are 5 senses.
And that would be sight,
Vision, smell, taste, hearing, and touch. Having had a little too much rum and too much time on our hands in the home tiki bar, I was thinking about the total tiki experience, but also the total escapist environment. So thinking about the Disneyland and the dark rides, thinking about, you and I have ripped before on movie theaters and other things in the 20s and 1920s and 1930s that may have influenced Dawn Beach and that was going on at that time that were atmospheric. And so thinking about the atmosphere and the atmospheric. So my whole thing is what we do in the tiki world, whether it's a home bar or other bar or a successful tiki bar, is we control the environment. Mm-hmm. We don't, we create our own sunshine or our own twilight. We create our own weather. That's.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's tiki bars where it rains.
But also too,
to
me, the temperature of the tiki bar is very important. I want it to be a bit cooler, either to feel a breeze or to get out of supposed heat, although we don't have much heat up here in the Pacific Northwest, and into a cool environment. Interestingly, whenever I go to New Orleans or Houston or Northern Australia, I always get these vicious colds because you go in this hot, humid environment and then you go in these blasting air conditioning. I don't want to quite create that, but you want to create that environment. And you're creating a space, right? So either you want high ceilings or no, or we don't do white walls, for instance, so we get a dark, controlled environment. And we create a mood, we create a theme, we create a point of view, a successful tiki bar or a successful environment. So having had a few drinks and actually riffing with you on these sort of things, I was thinking about that approach, that controlled environment, that escapism, that, whatever you want to call it, in terms of tiki and our 5 senses. And and I don't know why I got on this, but when you think about it, when you approach escapist environments that way, you think about it as a story, like I said, a point of view, an environment, and it's a very visual medium.
Oh yeah.
Very visual medium. But I thought about what are the other things that make this successful, and what I really was thinking about was Disneyland in particular, but how Disney has really mastered that environment.
Yep.
And so, what did they do, and how did they do it? And with regard to visuals, we could talk about all day about how to put a tiki bar together, or tiki bars we like, and what we see.
Yep.
But what about the other 4 senses? And what about the other things? So with regard to visual, there are really only 2 points I kind of have. One is just, and I think it's appreciated now, but may have been underappreciated, is what I call the lighting paradox.
The lighting paradox.
The lighting paradox.
So what is the lighting paradox?
So for a good tiki bar, the more lights, the better, but the darker, the better at the same time.
Yep.
So how do you successfully strike that balance, right?
No white walls.
No white walls
and no white lights.
White lights. But as you know from this tiki bar, there are gallery walls here. Yes. So I want people to see and appreciate the art and what's hanging here. But at the same time, you don't want to lose that twilight or evening atmosphere.
Yeah.
Right? So
maybe it comes down to focus lighting.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a lot of lighting, but focus lighting. And where do you light it? Where do you not? How do you play with it? What's the right variation of not just color, but patterns, so that you can see everything and highlight everything, but at the same time not overwhelm people with a bunch of light, right?
Well, what I'm thinking of, you're wearing a false idol shirt. Mm-hmm. And the thing that struck me the most with false idol was it's a very, very dark tiki bar.
Yeah.
Yet colorful. And how they did it was all the lighting was up on top.
But think of how many lights they have there.
It was a lot.
It's the whole ceiling's covered in lights, right?
The whole thing is that. And how they did it was for the, the tables that are kind of around the perimeter of the room is they just had this little white kind of like light that, like an LED light that just kind of came down to the table. So you could sit here and like you can see what you're doing at your table. But as soon as you looked away from your table, it got dark.
Yeah.
So it was a really interesting thing where it was dark yet light.
Yeah. And the way I approach it, it's not orthodox for tiki and it's a little modern, is I've always liked art rail lights.
Yeah.
So, you rail and you string them, so you can see the lights, but it looks more like an art gallery.
Oh my God! Well, even here with your
Yeah.
this is your mug collection, and that's what you have.
Yep.
So your mugs are lit, but it isn't like there's a light shining down on it.
Exactly. So the paradox is the more the better, the darker the better. So how do you strike that balance? And that's one of the visual things. The other interesting thing for me, visually, again, after a lot of rum, you get a lot of, and a lot of quarantine, you get a lot of interesting things, ideas, is the feeling of touch, So when we talk about our five senses, and there the visual can inform that sense. Because, it's kind of bad form to go into a bar and start fondling the walls, right?
No, that's not safe either.
Well, or in mine, you might get splinters in the wood. I mean, this wood's smooth, but some of my areas are not smooth, but again, let's credit Bamboo Ben when he talks about layers. I like to talk about texture, right?
Yeah.
You want texture, so a good visual element. You can take a picture of, and you have on your blog, of people's home tiki bars or commercial bars.
Yep.
And that they have those layers, they have that texture, they have the rattan, they have the bamboo, they have the wood, they have the globes, and you can almost feel it, you can almost touch it. It's tactile.
Oh yeah,
so
right here.
Here's a Bosco, right? So shout out to Bosco, and you just you can
even here with the wood,
see it, and
you can feel the wood grain.
Exactly. And so one of the interesting things is the visual in a contained environment can inform the touch. When you go to Disneyland and you're in a dark ride, you don't, you get kicked out of the park if you tried to grab things in the Haunted Mansion, right? In your buggy. Yeah. Okay. But although I probably wanted to strangle a little puppet or two, and it's a small world from time to time, but yet, I mean, think about that environment. Think about how tactile it is. I mean, you don't touch anything in there, but you feel like you could, or that you feel like you could go into one of the Haunted Mansion rooms, and if you ran your finger, you'd be caked in dust, right? Yeah. So the visual creates an element of touch when you can't touch, which is kind of an interesting.
Well, think about the Devil's Reef. It's like a nautical kind of theme. I mean, you have that bar, like it's like this wood, this like grainy wood, and your hands are on the bar, and it feels like, you can feel it. Yeah. But even what you were saying too, with like, and I don't know if any bar, if I've been to a tiki bar where they've controlled the airflow, because that's actually a really good idea. Imagine if there was this air that kind of felt like the wind, right? Every once in a while, kind of coming through. And I don't know if I've ever been to somewhere that's done that.
Well, and the other thing too is the more people you have, the hotter it gets. I mean, we're a small home bar. So I have to open the vents and run the AC a little. And so if it makes you feel like a little bit of a cool breeze, especially where if I have a dimension that looks or feels like water, for instance, because that's a big thing in tiki bars, and we'll talk about that in sound too. But, the element of water and a breeze, and then the palm trees, right? Oh my God, yeah. So the other interesting sense, we talk about touch. And touch, we usually refer to feeling, but we think about feeling in the psychological sense. So I'm kind of departing strictly, I guess, from the five senses in a way, but the feeling, and that's what we're going for, right? Atmospherics. That's what we're talking about, the total environment, an enclosed environment, control. And so that's what, to me, is just really cool, is you're controlling the environment to get a feeling. Yeah. And with regard to feeling, the one sense that evokes nostalgia in most people is smell.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
So one of the things that Disney is a master of is piping in smells
Really?
in their rides. And
Piping smells?
Yeah, and I don't know, no one, Disney doesn't tell you if it's true or not, but when you walk down Main Street in Walt Disney World, especially when it's not as crowded, you smell all the foods and the food products. It's been said, and a Disney file can tell me if it's true or false, that they'll actually pump in a little bit of a baked cookie smell or an apple pie smell, or the smell of the chlorine substitute they use in the Pirates of the Caribbean, right? Yeah. Don't we all associate that musky, funky smell with the Pirates of the Caribbean? Those who have been to Disney, right?
It's almost subconscious. Now that you're saying it.
Yeah.
Because I never even thought about it. It's like, oh, yeah.
But if you smell that smell, you might do like when I was first at Pirates, I was like, what's that funky smell? Now we associate it with that ride when we're standing in line, don't we?
No, or even if somehow you would smell that smell outside of it, you'd be like...
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what. Yeah. The best smelling tiki bar I think I've ever been to is Holly Paley. Mm-hmm. And even before I knew anything about anything, I remember I always liked how Holly Paley smelled in Portland, and I never really knew what it was until it was like, oh yeah, that's cinnamon. It's like burnt cinnamon, and it's like, oh, okay.
Because they pour when they do the fire
they do
drink,
so much fire,
cinnamon,
and there's cinnamon everywhere, and it's great because it's like you leave and it's on your clothes and stuff like that. Like, I mean, even just thinking about that smell makes me think of Holly Paley.
There you go. And so smell is just
or the mint in a tiki drink. Like the idea of when you have a mint in a Mai Tai, when you bring that up, you smell the mint.
Yeah.
That obviously the smell actually is going to affect your taste.
Although we're drinking Navy grogs, and to me I associate that with the grapefruit smell, and which obviously goes to taste, which is for tiki bars is a no-brainer. But on the smell, so what I do in my bar, I give away my secrets, which is there, is I've got 2 little wax melts. One is a skull, and one is a Trululu kind of octopus wax melt.
Yep.
And I found these, there are companies, you can find them on Etsy, that try to replicate Disney smells. Because each of the Disney...
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because in each of the lobbies of the Disney World hotels, they have different scents that they pipe in.
There's a different smell for the different lobbies.
Yeah, so the Contemporary Hotel versus
really?
The Polynesian Hotel versus... Yeah, they have their own signature scents that like for their... whatever it is, soaps, or that they pipe in, or they're just their air freshener. Yeah.
Wow, okay.
Disney's just, and so, and it's a ride I haven't been on, but the Pandora ride in Walt Disney World, I think it's at the Animal Kingdom. They're known for their scents. But you remember the soaring rides? Remember it was originally Soaring Over California Adventure?
Yeah.
They're world famous that when you go over the Valencia orange groves that probably are all condos now. When you soar over there, you get that orange scent. They have always that one was a deliberate pipe in of the orange smell.
Now as we're talking about this, Stephen, it's like maybe out of all these senses, smell might be the most important.
Well, smell again, a book that none of us have ever read, but all know about, I guess, in literature from high school or college, is Marcel Proust, Remembrance of Things Past.
Yeah.
He wrote this huge tome, thousands of pages, I think. I don't know. Like I say, I've never soldiered through it. But the whole thing is a remembrance of a smell from, I think, his childhood and how it triggered memories, and he just was often went on a tear on writing this piece of literature. So you think about how the smells, either when you smell them, evoke times you've been there before, or evoke something else, right?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So I put the air freshener, and what I do is I went to Etsy and I got all these, one's called Main Street. So I have one in the corner of the tiki bar near where I have my fake water feature, is sort of a scent that supposedly reminds you of the tiki room. The thing is with the wax melt is, number one, I don't put full cubes in there because I don't want to overwhelm people with the scent. And number two is we're more, and which is that Main Street Melts Candle Company. So we'll give them a shout out. The other thing is, people were a little more sensitized to allergies and allergens in the air. So I don't want to overwhelm it. So only once has somebody, it's so funny, a friend came in the bar and goes, "Oh, it smells nice." And I went like that, and I'm not in front of this friend because I go, "Oh, maybe I put too much scent." Because I almost don't want you to notice.
As soon as I smell that, it's like, yep, I've smelled that smell.
Yeah, but have you ever, and Ray, you've been in my bar more than any other friend. Have you noticed the smell deliberately? Do you know I have a scent in there?
No, not until now that you said it.
So that's
because now that I smell it, I'm like, yes, I've smelled that smell. It was here, but I would have never even.
Whether that's
wow. Yeah, you're right.
So that's just why we're going for the other senses other than visual today. And the other side of the room is even more subtle, and it's the area of the room that people don't congregate because there are two big chairs there, but you can sit at. And this is for me. Is my favorite smell. I have a very strong sense of place. Maybe that's why I riff on these weird things. More than people in my past, I riff on places. And when I watch a commercial on TV, if it's a place I've been to or lived, it's like, oh, that's downtown LA. I don't know the street necessarily. I'm not a savant, but that's LA. That's San Francisco. Oh, I identify with the place, the architecture, the feel of especially cities. Sydney versus Melbourne in Australia. San Francisco versus Los Angeles in California. You go on and on. You know, New Orleans is unique. But because I was born in San Francisco and my wife and I were fortunate to live in Australia, eucalyptus, that's my trigger, childhood, just that's the smell. Yeah. Now, usually they pour a lot of minty stuff into eucalyptus. So for my benefit, because I just groove on that smell, as odd as I am, is this one is supposed to represent Pandora ride at Disney. So the fresh air and the forest. So I put it in the more forested area of my little bar.
Let me smell this.
Yeah. It's got a really nice, clean, almost eucalyptus smell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It smells very good.
And then I found it's a little minty, but I found a eucalyptus that's a little more pure eucalyptus smell. Because again, that's San Francisco. Yeah. San Francisco and parts of Australia have Australian eucalyptus trees. In fact, the ones in San Francisco came from Australia over 100 years ago. So that's why it's my trigger smell. So,
hey gang, we'll get back to the tiki conversation here in just a second, but I want to let y'all know they have t-shirts for sale. They are screen printed in America. The artist is Tony Canepa, and they're going for $20 a piece, $25 including shipping. If you're interested in buying one, go to my website, tikiwithray.com, and then there's a tab that says buy a t-shirt. Click on there and just follow the prompts. So thank you very much.
It's all a play on like the subconscious, and these are things that, say, someone who's coming here to visit your bar, or someone who's going to Disney, that all these elements are already in place. Mm-hmm. And as the person's coming in, they just don't know that everything's there, just like with the smell.
Yeah.
Or you're like, it's how things taste, or how they seem, how they feel. That's all been planned out in advance. Right. And I bet, like, seriously, I bet there's tons of people that have gone to these like the hotels, and they never even thought for a second, like, oh, that this wasn't intentionally. Okay, this is supposed to smell like this.
But if I could recreate that smell, I might trigger that happy memory of the trip to Disney World or whatever, right? That's why I think smell is just so, as a nostalgia tool, is so cool, or an identifier of place is just really cool. And it could be very tragic too, by the way, but but it triggers memories. And so we're trying to, obviously in a tiki environment or a Disney environment, trigger those happy memories. And so, because the other thing, I was in October, and people think I'm crazy, but I went to Disneyland by myself, right? And so what I'm doing is thinking about these things when I was last in Disneyland. And so what I'm doing is I'm in the buggy in the Haunted Mansion, getting there at 8 in the morning before there's lines. And I'm the crazy guy looking not at what I've seen 100 times before, but I'm looking up to see, okay, and Pirates too, how did they do that light? Where do the lights come from? Because they, with the buggy, it's a great example of the visual environment if you think about it. Because, the buggy sort of blocks your peripheral vision, completely. And you're completely.
It literally is forcing you to. Right. Okay, this is where you're supposed to look. And even with those cars, they turn.
Exactly.
where it's like we want you to see this.
Which gives the Imagineers more freedom to put maybe spotlights or wires or whatever in a darkened area to go flash at it, so your eyes aren't blinded by the light right in your eyes. Closely related to smell, of course, is taste. The differences in our expectations of drinks at quality tiki resorts, tiki bars. So we were comparing the drinks that we've loved at Shameful Tiki versus Hale Pele, right? Versus Devil Reef. I think you and I agree, all three we've had amazing tiki drinks, amazing rum drinks. And yet at each three, we were talking about how we identify sort of a different taste. One might have heavier syrup or fruit.
Yep.
One is more rum forward. One might be more fancy in prep but you know, and we identify it with those bars, right? And you know, our friend Jason Alexander, we identify and have grown to love the way he mixes drinks because, and you've been to a lot more bars than I have, but it's unique. It's a takeoff on the classics, but it's also unique, and it's a clearly identifiable type of drink that we go to Devil's Reef, and that's the kind of drink we like and expect. Yeah. So taste is, I mean, and at a bar, though, that's kind of a no-brainer. And then the last layer is the sound. So the easy one is music, and you and I have had lots of discussions about this, probably never on camera. Music, I mean, you live for music, I live for music, but and you're well versed in all sorts of music, which is really cool. Yeah. But you know, and so we you know, and a lot of people more expert than I talk about exotica. But as you know, I like to mix it up. I like surfer or tiki style covers of 80s and 90s music that I love. Yeah. I mean, that's just my group. I love Latin influenced jazz and Latin influenced music. Yeah. I want at my bar, I want people to be conscious somewhat of the music, but I like toe tapping. So I love it when people are conversing and tapping their toes at the same time. Again, sometimes it sinks in your subconscious. Volume's a real tricky element in a tiki bar because you want people to converse, but I want it loud enough that people can kind of move and groove. Other people want it more exotica and lower it down to keep the vibe more chill, which is, you know, a cool thing about a tiki bar. But, you know, we all have different things. So the music is important. And then a lot of people, we all play with sound. So I don't have a waterfall here, but I pipe water sounds, and then I have a fake reflective water coming out with water sounds and bird sounds in the background.
That stuff's important. There's a little box you can actually buy. It's like a sound effects box. Then it's like literally like this big, and you can like put it and hide it. And
cool.
And you want rain. You got rain sounds.
Oh, I love that.
You got like tropical sounds. You got waterfall sounds. That's another element too.
Yeah.
I visited my friends Wendy and Dan Savola, and they have a tiki room in their house. And Dan's a tiki file, like he loves music and stuff like that. And like, but in his tiki room, he literally has like 3 CD players and like a quadraphonic sound system. And he has like 3 CDs of different sound effects.
Cool.
All going at the same time. Like here's like you're in the jungle sounds. Yeah. Here's a rain sound. Here's like the natives, like, you know.
Yeah.
And it's loud.
That
like,
is cool.
When you're in this room, it's loud and
kind of like the Trader Sam's on steroids. For those of you who've been to Disney, Trader Sam's, they do that wonderful light, rain and lightning and effects.
This all comes back to every reason why I love tiki and tiki bars so much. It goes beyond just drinking some alcoholic drink.
Yeah.
It's the entire thing.
Yeah. And so I guess what I've been riffing on is, what is the entire thing?
Tiki. Speaking about the sense of taste, I think I'm up for another drink.
All right. So we're going to either Mai Tai it or Navy Grog it. For all of you at home. I guess you can live vicariously.
Yeah, it looks like you have no choice but to live vicariously. No, what we'll do for this episode is it'll be like the scratch and sniff thing, you know.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, for this part, you scratch.